G'day, Geoff Lewis here from Seriously Series, and today I've got a little bit of news and something a little bit different for you here today. So hang on to that cup of tea, put down that Lamington and get ready for a cracking good video. Now, many of you who have subscribed and followed the channel for a number of years will know of our ongoing series called Landy Talk, Landy Chat. And obviously we interview individuals who have Land Rovers and have sort of pursued and conquested their thirst of adventure. Now this is a theme that we will want to continue with the series itself, but there's actually something a lot greater at hand here. And this is really what Seriously Series is all about and has been right from the start. It's about pursuing your own path to adventure. Finding your own adventure out there, getting out there, finding your way of doing it and making it happen. And today, we're going to change the very name of the series here. We're going to call it Just Adventure. And in these chats, conversations and interviews and more, I'm going to be talking with people who've done just that. Gone out and found their way of quenching their thirst for adventure. And one particular gentleman who has done just that is a good friend of mine, Tony from the Mighty Overland. And we're going to be listening to his story here today, how he has created his passion into videos here on YouTube and beyond, and well and truly onto the television screens, gracing his way right across the country of Australia and more. So join me as we have a chat to Tony, find out what he's up to, where he's been and where he's going and more. Okay, well, good to see you, Tony. Thanks for making the time.
G'day, Geoff.
G'day, Tony. We've been talking about this for a little while, but it's fantastic to talk a little bit about what you're doing. And I guess for the benefit of those who haven't had the joy of watching your wonderful adventures, can you tell us a little bit about the Mighty Overland and how you would describe, I guess, in a brief overview, the videos and media style that you've sort of developed?
Yeah, so I've been extraordinarily lucky in the last couple of years. I found content creation as a mechanism to both explore my own interest in camping, overlanding, the outdoors and things like that in a different way, but also share it with others. And I've also got a bit of a creative streak in which I've been able to exercise as well, which has been fantastic. I originally started the Mighty Overlander, actually funnily enough it was called the Mighty Jimny originally, but I started the Mighty Overlander back in 2021, and the focus of the channel has generally been around my 2019 JB74 Suzuki Jimny, the modifications that I've done to the vehicle and the trips that I've gone on. And over time, it's essentially evolved into a little bit more of a all-encompassing kind of outdoorsy set of content, in particular for driving, camping, fishing. So that's my main focus. The four kind of videos that I generally will do will be trip videos where I'll take the Jimny out, and sometimes solo, but quite often with a group, where we'll go out to places throughout Western Australia and do micro overlanding. And then the other kind of videos that I'll do will be how-to videos for installs on the vehicle, and mainly around modifications, accessories, upgrades, things like that. And I do that with a very good friend of mine, Phil the mechanic.
Oh, you have to have a good mechanical friend, don't you?
Oh, mate, Phil and I have been friends since we've been kids, and he's an absolute gentleman and an absolute professional when it comes to his mechanical stuff. Yeah. I'll also do some gear reviews and stuff like that based on the kind of equipment that I've been using in my camping and fishing adventures And generally speaking, I will only do a couple of those a year. I'm not a gear review channel per se,
No.
but I'll do stuff that has worked really quite well with what I've been doing, and in turn, what I do is I then try and share that with others because I know it's worked well for me, and
Oh,
people,
def definitely. And
yeah.
there's a lot of subject matter to obviously cover there, Tony. Too. It's
Oh, exactly
vast.
right. And
It's
it's
vast.
also a good way to smash out a bit of a video if I'm a bit low on trips as well.
Yeah,
So which
that's
is
true.
always
Bit
good.
bit of a filler, you could say. But to do all this, producing of videos and all the rest, it takes a fair bit of motivation and dedication. How did you sort of stumble across that? You obviously, have had a career in many other avenues and interests. What sort of drove you to pursue this avenue that you've gone down now?
To be honest, for many many years, I wanted to do some form of content creation,
Hmm.
and the every single time I've kind of thrown myself into an interest, I become quite obsessive with it, and I kind of want to be the best at it,
Yeah.
if you know what I
Yep.
mean,
Yep. Yep.
and
Yep.
it's one of those things. So a bit of a background on why I'm kind of like that. So I grew up in a military family. I've just
Hmm.
finished 20 years in the military myself, and we moved every couple of years around Australia, which meant making new friends,
Yep.
and also meant with those new friends came new interests,
Yeah.
and you had to make sure that you were legit with your new
Yeah.
friends, that you
Yeah.
were
Yeah. Oh, for
that you
sure.
were
Yeah.
committed, so that meant that I'll throw myself into these interests, and that kind of became a bit of a an underpinning of the kind of personality that I have, that I can talk to strangers quite happily, and
Yeah.
I throw myself into some interests.
And
But
I
when it
guess
came,
I was just going to say an all or nothing approach, Tony.
oh, very much so, yeah,
Yeah.
very much so. And look, when it came down to the camping outdoorsy kind of stuff, look, I started at a very young age with that kind of
Oh, for sure.
activity.
Yeah.
I was a scout. I was in cadets. My father was in the army for 25 years. So we had a bit of, like, it wasn't like an every weekend kind of
Mm.
situation, but throughout the year we would go out into the outdoors and we'd experience those things.
Yeah.
And as I grew older, in particular around 2015, 2016, I started becoming more and more interested again in the
Yeah.
outdoorsy stuff and the full driving. And that also kind of coincided around the period in which I had my own kids.
Yeah.
And I thought, eventually, because my son who's 8
Yeah.
now, he was born in 2015, and I thought to myself, you know what, I would love to take my boy camping.
Yeah.
And when I take my boy camping, I don't want to look like the dad that doesn't know what he's doing.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
so I started going
Good on you.
camping again, and
Yeah.
brushing up on my bushcraft and camping skills and all those
Yep.
kinds of things.
Yep.
Just the basics, how to start a fire, how to put your tent up, and all those
Yeah.
kinds of things.
Look, it never looks good when dad's there starting a fire with green sticks,
That's exactly right.
raises a
Yeah.
few eyebrows, doesn't it? You know.
And as a result of that, I started doing a fair bit of camping on my own as well,
Nice.
in
Nice.
particular as we went into the COVID period.
Yeah.
So, with my background in the military, when we were deployed during the COVID period, we were unable to do our normal rest and
Mm.
relaxation in foreign places.
Yep.
So we were confined to I was in the Navy, to the ship.
Yep.
And when I got home, I was surrounded by 200 people for
Yeah.
120 days at a time.
Yeah.
And I thought, you know what, I just want to disappear, and I'd go by myself.
Yeah.
Being the very talkative guy that I am, I actually found that to be good, but very lacking in some sense. So
Mm.
as a result, I started filming it. And when I
Yep.
started filming it, it honestly started with a GoPro and quite a cheap drone, and it was, g'day guys, here's my car, and literally that's my first episode, was me going on a solo camping trip by myself, and it was just kind of showing off the vehicle.
Good
And
on
at
you.
the time, it became quite popular because the Jimny was still fairly new. It was only been out for a year or two at that time,
Yeah.
and it just kind of took off from there. So my passion to uh, continue the motivation and everything like
Mm.
that actually comes down to constantly changing it up a little bit,
Yeah.
looking for new places to go, looking for new formats in which to create content creation. And we've discussed this
Mm.
offline quite a few times. And that also has then led me to become a presenter on the Full Drive Show on Channel 7 as well.
Yeah, which is fantastic, and it's all happened in such a short period of time.
Yeah, all or
To
nothing, mate. That's
Yeah,
the
well, that's it. But you know, you can put it down to that, but I think a lot of it also comes down to knowing the right people, being in the right place at the right time, but also having the right approach to things too, which you certainly do, Tony. You know, honest,
oh yeah.
upfront, genuine. You know, that makes a big difference.
And also look, there was a fair bit of luck involved as well. And
Yes.
the I think the first bit of luck that I experienced in this story was being invited by the legendary Ronnie Dahl
Oh,
onto
yes.
Modified 99, and that
Yep.
became an extremely popular
Mm.
episode for his show.
Yep.
And through that, I was contacted by a mutual acquaintance of us, who's actually quite a good friend of mine now, David Howie, the owner
Yep.
of Wild Trout Leisure Australia, and
Yep.
that led to a trip of a lifetime, which was we took 22 Suzuki Jimneys across the Gunbarrel Highway from Perth to Uluru, and
Fantastic.
that really kicked it all off. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. And that was a huge thing, a huge production to sort of just dive straight into, you know,
that's right.
having,
Yeah,
you know, obviously done a lot up to that point, but it's very different filming a little weekend trip away over a couple of days and then editing it compared to 2 3 weeks away and you're doing everything. You know, there's not
that's
much
correct.
time to stop and, as we talked about, make some dumplings in the camp oven at night. You're
Yeah,
pretty
the
spent
golden
by the
syrup
end of the
dumplings.
day. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
yeah.
the old golden syrup dumpling saga. God, I still haven't done them. Still
Well,
to this
we're
day,
going to
I
have to
haven't bloody
make that
done
happen, Tony. But I guess
them.
with all this travel and now, you know, which is fantastic, you're gracing the TV screen and all the rest. Um, there must be, you know, we touched on a few elements there, but would you say there's sort of two elements that really highlight the enjoyment, the pleasure, the drive to do this kind of travel? Is it the serenity? Is it the people you meet? Is it just the sense of adventure?
Yeah, look, there's two things that stand out for me straight away when you ask that question. And the first thing is that I genuinely love driving.
Mm,
I absolutely love being in my car. It is my own little capsule inside this vast universe of ours, and it's all mine.
yeah,
And I just love, mate. I love driving up the freeway. I
yeah,
absolutely love driving. And when I get an opportunity to stretch the Jimny's legs out on those just beautiful outback trails and fire
yeah.
lines and old dusty roads going through. Look, I'm not a rock crawler. I'm
Mm,
not the kind of guy that risks my vehicle to drive over things for the sake of driving over things.
yeah, yeah.
But I am very much a keen full driver where if there's a tough track that I've got to get down to get somewhere absolutely magical, then
Mm,
I'm more than willing to give it a crack. And it's actually one of the things we've been talking about recently in terms of our coming our future segments on the Full Drive Show is that we're going to inject a fair bit more action in there
yeah,
and everything like that. And I guess that the other thing is the people.
yeah.
Not just the people that we meet along the way, which are absolutely fascinating, might I add. We've met some absolutely wonderful characters in the Australian outback because they're very, very different to the people that live in the city.
Definitely.
They have a completely different outlook on life, and they have a completely different outlook in regards to personality and everything like that
Mm,
as well.
mm.
But more so, it's the people that I'm traveling with.
Yeah.
So
Sharing
the
those
team,
experiences with them.
that's right,
Yeah.
yeah, and just the chats around the campfire, the shared experience of these magical tracks and destinations,
Mm.
and then once again being able to reminisce about that in the future is also a massive driving factor for me, because
Oh, for
in
sure.
particular with the guys like Chris Woods
Yep.
and Jacob from the Full Drive Show, Dave and his absolutely amazing wife Karen,
Mm.
my very good friend Mike Malott.
Yep.
The five of us have been camping a lot and overlanding a lot this year,
Mm.
and experiencing the outback, the destinations, and also meeting those awesome characters that you do come across in the outback, but
Mm.
experiencing it with that core group of men and women, it's just it's really good. I can't actually put it into words of how important that is to me. Yeah,
Well, no, you can't, and you certainly can't put a price tag on it either, Tony. I think that's fair to say, and it's one of the great things about doing this form of travel and sort of going to these areas. It's the experience that you take away, and that's really the essence of life itself.
it is.
You're going to have that till whenever, basically, and it's going to probably annoy your kids till the end of your days, because you're just going to be repeating the same stories again and again because it's just so profound.
And look, long after the trips are done,
Mm.
long after the car's moved on to a new owner,
Hmm.
long after I've, the knees give out and I can't go camping anymore or something like that, there will be these memories, there will be these
Mm.
experiences. And I am in an extraordinarily lucky position that there's also going to be a video diary of everything that I've been doing as
Well,
well.
that's the
So
thing.
when it comes to sharing this stuff with my family, with my kids, with my
Mhm.
friends, I can spin a good story, but I've also got the video to back it up as well.
That's very
So, which
important.
is really good.
Now, I guess one thing to back you up at the moment, Tony, is the elephant in the room. It's a small one, it's a green one, but
Yes.
it's a mighty one, isn't it? And that is the mighty Suzuki Jimny. Now, what made you decide to get a Jimny, and how has it sort of evolved over time? Because it's quite a specialized little vehicle that you've got there.
It is. It is. Look, my relationships and I say relationships because this is not my first Jimny,
Mm-hmm.
um, with compact four driving and in particular with Suzuki goes back pushing 10 years now on the run.
Yep.
But my very first experience with the short wheelbase full drives was actually a 1986 or 7 Suzuki Sierra,
Ah,
and that was
fantastic.
my grandfather's. And that was an absolutely amazing vehicle, very retro 80s style. It
Yep.
had a like a one of those black canvas soft tops,
Yep.
very retro 80s style in regards to it had like this very strange uh, paint stripe decal down the side that was really, it really did personify the 80s surfy bum kind of thing,
Oh,
which was
yeah.
really cool. But in 2015, a friend of mine, who's actually my best mate, a fellow called Jimmy, he came over to my place and he'd just purchased himself an old 2001 or 2000 model Jimny, and I saw it and I thought this reminds me of my grandfather's old Sierra, and I didn't really follow along,
Mm.
during the interim years, because
Mm.
I went from my very first vehicles into things like Japanese import cars, and then I'm not really a car guy.
Mm.
I don't find cars all that interesting in
Yep.
regards to oh, this is fast or this makes a lot of noise or anything. Like there's people out there that what gets their heart racing and their blood pumping is the roar of the engine and the different specifications of various vehicles. For me, it's purely a mechanism to get out and enjoy.
Yeah.
And whilst I absolutely love driving, to be honest, it doesn't really matter what it is.
Yeah.
But then Jimmy came over with his Jimny, and and I'm like, this is pretty cool. So I started the hunt to try and find one myself, and I got a 2006 or 7 model Jimny, And that survived a couple of years. That was back in 2015. And in 2018, I saw the leaked photos of what would later be the current model. And I
Wow.
thought, oh, I've got to get me one of these. This is going to be a special vehicle. And if you it's become an extremely popular vehicle. Now, if you look at the sales data of the Jimny, in 2018, they sold 158 or 159 cars nationally. And that was
Wow.
it.
Yeah.
In 2023, I believe they're up to about 8 or 9,000.
That's a lot for a small population of
Yes, it
Australia.
has
That is a lot.
definitely, yeah, it's definitely gone through the roof. So when I got this vehicle, it was a very special thing. I went in, paid cash for it, and thought, this is going to be my car. But one of the big things was, uh, at the time, you knew that this was going to be a special vehicle, and you also knew that this was something that you're going to be able to customize.
Yes.
And over the last few years, the mods, the customizations, those little things that I've done, which has made it very much my vehicle and made it the
Mm.
Mighty Jimny, has been, yeah, very, very fun, actually. Yeah, and it's quite enjoyable.
Yeah, yeah, and you've certainly got a setup that's got enough comfort there, but also isn't too over the top, and that's where the size of the vehicle would keep you quite true to keeping it simple and keeping it effective.
That's right. Now,
Mm.
just before we go further, I've lost you
You've
here.
lost me. Oh, okay, that's a shame.
Oh, I think it's my headphones. I think
Oh,
maybe
there
that's
you
what I'm
go.
playing with
There
it.
you go. They must be Lucas headphones, but anyway, that's okay. So I guess you
There
know,
we go. Gotcha.
incredible vehicle. You've done some big adventures, Tony, and there's more coming our way, as we know. But what would you say is the most remarkable situation you've found yourself in, and what would be the most difficult?
Ooh.
Tough question.
So it is. It is. Look, there's obviously been a lot of trips. To date,
Mm.
I've done. I purchased the vehicle back in, I think it was early February. I was the second person in WA to take delivery, in 2019, and I've just ticked over 120,000
Wow.
kilometers
Wow.
on the vehicle.
Yeah.
Now, to put that in perspective as well, in 2019, I also broke my neck, and I wasn't able to drive for about 6 months. And in 2020, one, I was away for about 4 months of the year with work, and in 2020, sorry, 2020, I was away for about 4 months of the year, and then in 2021, I was away for about 7 months of that year.
Yes.
So really, I've done about 120,000 Ks in, say, about 2.5 years. So we've done
Wow.
a lot.
Yes.
Yeah. Look, the most interesting one, I I think, was actually, the I'd have to say it was the Goldfields, Ghost Towns of the Goldfields trip that we did
Yep.
earlier this year, in regards to where we were able to take the videos and the interesting things that we were able to see. When it comes down to the most epic trip and the most challenging trip, definitely the Gun Barrel Highway.
Yeah.
That in itself was a 4,500 K round trip, going across arguably the most remote track in Australia.
Mhm.
And at points, you're really, really out in the middle of nowhere kind of thing. It was interesting to see that of the 22 Jimneys we took across the Gun Barrel Highway, not a single mechanical. We had one flat, you know.
Yeah.
And
Wow.
that's a bit of a testament to how tough these little cars are.
Mm.
We've taken through some pretty rough terrain. We've had them lent over up dunes, but honestly, at no point through any of our travels, whether that be the really remote stuff or the more rough kind of, either be soft sand dune work, or all the
Mm.
way, there's been no point at which I've thought, you know what, the Jimny's not up to the task here.
Yeah.
That being said, though, look, the Suzuki are notorious for undercooking the power of these small four drives. The Jimny's only got a 1.5 litre naturally aspirated donk under the bonnet there. And the problem with that really comes down to, once you load them up, they do become pretty sluggish.
Yep.
Luckily, once you're off road and stuff like that, you're taking things relatively slow anyway. It's more about taking those main arterials to get out to those places before
Yeah.
you
Yeah.
can actually get off road. But look, they are an amazing car. I think overall, and look, I think I've said this before. If there was say a 1.8 liter turbo or a 2 liter dunk under the bonnet and a sixth highway gear for the manual and a fifth highway gear for the auto, it'd be 10 times the car.
Oh,
You know,
for
it,
sure, for sure. And
that'd be
look,
just
someone will probably come up with a modification to put a turbo on it down the track.
Oh, look, that's already happening
Oh, there you
now.
go.
Yeah, quite a few guys are using various methods of forced induction for this kind of vehicle. I'm actually looking at potentially putting a supercharger on mine next year.
Oh,
Just
nice.
to
Yeah.
just to change it up a little bit.
Yeah.
We're not 100% sure if we will, so I'm not going to commit to that.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
there is potential there. And look, even then, it's not about making the car super powerful. It's just more about having that little bit extra. So when I am loaded up on a trip, the car is a little bit more responsive and a little
Yeah.
bit
Yeah.
more inclined to be able to hold those higher speeds and be able to go up hills without being too much of a slug.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I guess talking about trips there, Tony, there's obviously there's always another trip in the can or getting ready to be prepared for. But I
Yes.
think it's interesting to ask this question. If money was no object, where would you go or where would you want to go with your Suzuki Jimny? Where would you take it?
Oh, that's a really good question. Look, there's two. I love Australia. I've had the opportunity to do a fair bit of travel in Australia, not just with full driving, but just in general. And whilst there are millions of places that I'm still yet to discover in this amazing country of ours, I feel that if money was no object, because whilst at the moment money is an object and I can still go do those things, if money was no object, I would like to send the vehicle to the States
Yep.
and do a trip through the US in the Jimny. You're unlikely to be able to do that because unfortunately the Jimny's not sold over there, and being a completely different vehicle, I think that would be very, very difficult to pull off. But if money wasn't an object, you'd probably bribe the right people to make it happen. But
Well, it
yeah.
could be possible because they do actually export the Land Rover Parenti to the
That's
States.
right. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
but yes, it would be a lot of paperwork.
But so I'd like to do an overlanding trip through the states, in particular, in the northern states, in the southern states of Canada, there, where you're really pushing into the colder climates, in particular, the snow. Some of those mountainous areas through like Montana and stuff like that would be fantastic, up through Maine and things. So yeah, I think that would be really enjoyable. But the other place that I would love to go is Japan.
Yeah.
To the birthplace of Suzuki.
Yeah.
And I would love to do an overlanding trip through the Japanese countryside, and do some Japanese camping as well. Yeah, for sure.
Well, that wouldn't be a trip, I don't think, Tony. That'd be a pilgrimage.
Oh, 100%.
Yeah.
Look, and funnily enough, now that I'm wrapping up my military career, potentially next year or the year after, we are actually in the process of planning that very trip. Now, I won't be taking my vehicle with me, but it will definitely be happening in regards to heading over there, arranging a Jimny while I'm there, and doing that particular trip.
Sounds amazing.
So yeah.
Yeah.
Yes. I'm quite excited for that one. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's actually one place I've wanted to go since I was about, I don't know, 16.
Right.
And even with all of my travels through Southeast Asia that I've done, I mean, I've been to Korea, China, Singapore, Thailand, Indonesia, Cambodia, Vietnam. I've done everywhere,
but
the one place I really wanted to go to.
Yeah, look, I can testify to that too, because smaller scale, obviously, but my work as a geologist, I don't exactly go to the holiday hotspots either. You kind of just get go to where you're sent to. So it'll be really nice for yourself to be able to have a bit more control and a bit more say into where you actually end up, Tony. But I
Oh,
guess,
definitely.
this is going to be an incredible trip. I can't wait to see it when it comes out.
Yeah.
But where can
I think
people actually?
actually there's one other place. Sorry, there is one
Yeah,
other
yeah,
place.
yeah.
South Africa. I'd
Oh,
love to go to South Africa.
definitely.
There's a very interesting thing with the relationship between, in particular, Western Australia and South Africa, which is the terrain is somewhat similar.
Hmm.
The people are very similar and everything like that, and there is a lot of there's a lot of common ground there in the overlanding scene.
Hmm.
I've always basically said, look, when it comes to doing modifications on my vehicle,
Mm.
for the most part, I will always go Australian, at least Australian owned, if not made.
Hmm.
But the next one is South African gear,
Yeah. It
because
is
I think that
very,
it's
very rugged kit, isn't it?
that's right. Yeah,
Mm,
yeah,
And that's what you want. So obviously, great adventures coming out. Maybe
yes,
South Africa, definitely Japan, maybe the US.
definitely
Watch this
Japan. Yeah.
space. Where can people find out more about your fantastic videos and adventures and more, Tony?
So there's a few places. I'm kind of everywhere these days, aren't I?
You are, you are.
It's so my personal accounts and stuff like that for specifically the Mighty Overlander is the Mighty Overlander on YouTube and the Mighty Overlander on Instagram. I'm pretty sure I've got a TikTok account, but I barely ever touch that one. It's the other places you can find me, however, and that's for my very specific stuff, my forward driving, camping, fishing stuff that I do on usually on my own. And so I do the forward driving, the trips, gear reviews and installs on the vehicle, and the camping gear that I use. And I also do kayak fishing as well, which is one of my other passions, which is freshwater kayak fishing.
Yep.
And that's on the Mighty Overlander stuff. However, the bigger production stuff, where it's a bit more, so that my stuff's a bit rustic, it's good and it's more of a personal kind
Yeah,
of touch.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
The more professional stuff where I am presenting is on the Full Drive and Adventure Show on Channel 7 here in Australia, which if you're in Western Australia, it's 5:30 on a Saturday. If you're elsewhere in the country, it is 9:30 on a Saturday morning on 7 Mate. So 7 Mate nationally. Um, I'm also the current MC for the Full Drive and Adventure Show Expos.
That you are, mate.
Whether that continues on into the future, I'm hoping it does, but we'll see. And then I'm also the brand ambassador for Wild Track Leisure Australia, and through that, we do all of the trip videos for the Wild Track Leisure Australia YouTube channel as well, and they are some pretty epic trips. That's where I started with the full drive trip through the Gun Barrel Highway, and some of those trips are things like we've done the Murchison region, all through the goldfields, out your way, down through the southwest, through down to Albany and Shanes Beach. We've chased the story of Moondyne Joe out into the Avon Valley. So we've done some really, and obviously the Gun Barrel Highway. We've done some pretty special trips, and we've got in the process of actually planning some even bigger trips in the next 12 months, and that's going to be pretty special, actually.
Fantastic.
Yeah, definitely, for sure.
Definitely. Well, look, plenty there for people to look you up. I'm sure they'll find you. You're in many, many different spheres and mediums, which is fantastic, Tony.
Yeah.
Thank you so
If you
much
ever
for your
see
time.
the Wild Track ads of the bearded fella popping up and going, "This is the new this," that's me. So
That's
yeah,
your claim
so
to
I'm kind of
fame.
everywhere at the moment. Yeah, and
Yeah,
on the
yeah.
telly, which is good fun.
Fantastic, fantastic, Tony. Well, look, been an absolute pleasure as always. We could sit here and talk all day, but we better let these lovely people get on with their lives and more. But thank you all very much for watching once more. Thank you very much, Tony. And we'll catch
thank you
up.
very much for having me, mate.
Absolute pleasure. Catch you around. Thank you.
Cheers, buddy. Enjoy.
See ya.